Before becoming the hottest star in the industry, LA Knight used to be a manager for two guys who pretended to be models every week. In other words, imagine if The Rock was booked as a manager rather than the people's champion. Sounds terrible, right? That's what good old Vince McMahon had in mind for LA Knight, pal. As more weeks go by, LA Knight's popularity continues to grow exponentially, and it's crazy to think that a guy yelling "yeah" would be this over. From his days in Impact Wrestling to becoming an absolute fan favorite, Knight has certainly come a long way, but WWE continues to deny it by putting him in bland storylines and failing to pull the trigger on him on several occasions. Today, we'll be looking at why LA Knight really is the next big thing and how WWE should start treating him better. Let's get into it. While most people don't know about this, LA Knight used to work for WWE back in the day. LA Knight worked as an enhancement talent in NXT in 2014. He was basically a jobber with no direction who put over other guys. With no big plans for the now megastar, LA Knight was becoming increasingly frustrated with his position in the company. He was eventually released on the 1st of August in 2014, and LA Knight wasn't mad about it at all. He already had a plan in mind for himself that would propel him to the top. Knight did have the charisma of a top-tier professional wrestler. That was observed early on when Knight stood out in a group of athletes with a simple "yeah" in Triple H's Power Series DVD in 2014. It's crazy to think that Knight was working out with the game back then. After joining Impact Wrestling in 2015, Knight was known as Eli Drake. Fans saw that Knight was a great in-ring performer and could work with literally anyone. However, Knight possessed one specific ability that would separate him from the rest: the ability to cut memorable and quality promos. Knight debuted by joining Drew Galloway and Micah to form the stable known as The Rising. The stable was in a hot feud with MVP's faction, the Beatdown Clan. Drew did most of the talking for the group, and Knight wasn't allowed to say much because he was obviously the better talker, and he would have snatched the spotlight away from Drew. LA Knight soon turned heel, and that's when he began to show how great of a talker he is. Week after week, LA Knight would completely demolish other superstars with his promos that made fans rally behind him. His mannerisms and the natural way of cutting realistic promos is reminiscent of how The Rock got over in his days. His fact-of-life segments were nothing but outstanding, and it further showcased how creative the guy was. During his time with the company, Knight would go on to win the Impact World Championship. LA Knight left the company in 2019. One would think he would have returned to WWE. Knight chose to sign with NWA instead. While Knight would have returned to WWE, he chose to stick with other promotions, mainly because they offered a more lucrative contract. In an interview with Alex McCarthy from the Daily Mail, Knight explained how he needed the money. Impact Wrestling was paying him as he was struggling financially, despite being aware that WWE was the much bigger company and it would have made him a much bigger star than he already was. I knew my ceiling was much greater in WWE, but it was just that I had been broke for so long that I needed to take that money at that point in time. After a solid stint with NWA, Knight returned to NXT in 2021. It's no secret that not a lot of individuals keep up with Impact Wrestling. And, to be fair, most superstars don't even want to be there. After all, who wants to wrestle in front of 20 people? LA Knight made a strong impact in NXT with his charisma and those terrific promos. Fans got a taste of who LA Knight really is, and if there's one specific rivalry that should be revisited, it's the one he had with Cameron Grimes for the $1 Million Championship. The matches and the back and forth they had with each other on the mic were excellent. Knight soon found his way to the main roster in 2022, and if you think that things looked great for him in the beginning, you're wrong. Triple H's version of NXT was the best wrestling show on the planet. He created stars with his booking, and Vince wanted none of that on the main roster. Apart from a handful of NXT superstars, some were either rebranded and others were released. LA Knight was renamed as Max Dupree and became the manager of the fashion stable Maximum Male Models. No one asked for it, not even Knight himself. It was falling flat on its face. Before Knight could have been further demoted, Vince miraculously retired and Triple H took over the creative side of things. Funny how things work, right? Triple H brought Knight's old gimmick back, and Knight began firing on all cylinders. His first test came in the form of Bray Wyatt, and their feud was no less than a thing of beauty. Say what you want to about their match at Royal Rumble this year, but the build-up and the promos were magnificent. Knight's catchphrases and Bray's cryptic promos made SmackDown more interesting. After that feud, Knight was getting more popular than anyone on the roster. However, WWE has made some questionable decisions regarding Knight's run so far. WWE doesn't like the superstars who get over on their own. They want to push superstars that they admire. They never even wanted to push Daniel Bryan at one point. But look how fans forced the management's hand. WWE has failed to make LA Knight look strong on several occasions, despite the incredible support he has gained from the fans. WWE didn't even put him at this year's WrestleMania, which took place in Los Angeles. He was the fan favorite to win this year's Men's Money in the Bank ladder, but the win was given to Damian Priest instead. He even lost the fatal four-way match to become the #1 contender for the United States Championship on SmackDown. Here's the catch. WWE has a problem with old superstars, but it doesn't matter if Knight is 40 years old. He is the most popular guy in the industry right now, and he should be placed in the upper card. He got over in the most natural way possible, and how many stars can claim that? Not many. His charisma alone warrants him the top place in the company. The pop he got when he won a random battle royal at SummerSlam felt as if he had won the Royal Rumble match. WWE should capitalize on Knight's momentum, and he should be next in line to challenge for the World Championship, and he should be a world champion when we hit 2024. LA Knight cannot be stopped, and that's just a fact of life. Yeah,